Hi everyone. In one of the earlier video, I mentioned that AWS Lambda and API Gateway is my default choice to create the API, whether to serve a GPT-3 related application or whether to serve any transformer model that I have created for the client. The AWS Lambda and the API Gateway is my default choice. So AWS Lambda is actually a serverless computing where we don't need to worry about maintaining server and all this thing. Also, it is very cost effective and it is kind of scalable solution. You can host your backend here, and that backend could be in any language. I think you can have it in Node.js. I usually use Python, and even it supports the other programming language. So typically, the application could be something like this. Here is your user, maybe desktop, mobile, is going to access some API, and that API endpoint will be here API gateway, which is another service from the AWS. And then this API gateway knows for what kind of URL. For example, here you can see a slash customer. If that point of endpoint or a resource, which Lambda function to call. And once it says that this is the customer, it's going to call whatever the Lambda function configure for this particular API. And then that Lambda function is nothing but your typical backend. It can call DynamoDB or any database. It can make request. For example, this Lambda function can make request to GPT-3 or OpenAI API. It can do everything, whatever the backend can do, and then serves here. So this is very popular solution to create the API quickly. As I mentioned, it is also cost effective, so you don't need to rent any EC2 machine or something. Like whenever you're going to make a request, that is the time only it is going to charge you. So you can go and explore more about AWS Lambda and the API gateway. So what I'm going to show, I wanted to show a typical simple API use case to start with, creating AWS Lambda, then creating the API gateway, accessing that particular API using Postman. And maybe I also wanted to cover this part, how do we secure our API gateway with some kind of an authentication key? How do we, we can also create certain plan. For example, we can restrict that, this particular API key can have only, let's say, 5,000 requests. So those plans, usage plan, we call it in the AWS, those also that is what I wanted to cover. Maybe in one video or two video, we can cover that thing. So let's start with first creating some AWS Lambda, which is nothing but a some Python backend logic that you can run on certain events. You can even call AWS Lambda on S3 bucket event. For example, you took some photo, you upload it to S3 bucket. On that particular event, you want to trigger a Lambda function. So you can trigger that when you can configure when should this Lambda function to be triggered. So it can trigger something uploaded to the S3. It can be triggered when someone access certain API, right? So this is very versatile and very useful thing that you can learn about. So if you go to services, right, you can search for let's say you can search for the Lambda. And here if you click on Lambda, here you can actually create those functions. So function is nothing but your a code snippet that is going to run on particular that event. So I have a couple of functions already. If you don't have anything, you can go to create function. So in the create function, there are certain blueprint to create. We are going to create from the scratch. So we need to give a function name. So maybe I give the, it is something like maybe YouTube demo. This is the name of the function. Runtime, what language? You could say it has support a lot of things. You can do Go, Java, Node.js. I'm going to use Python. And all other things, maybe I can put it default. So it default, it is going to create the new role, a permission that requires to run this Lambda. So we only put the name of the function and which programming language or the runtime that we want. Okay, so now let's click on create function, and it will create that function for us. And we can edit that function, we can write our custom logic there. It's taking some time because it is going to create the new role for us also, right, with whatever the basic permission it has. Now this is the console look, right? So here you can see you can write a code here. So this Lambda function is nothing but this particular function name. You can change this name also. And then it is going to receive something. This is the important parameter event, which is nothing but, let's say, when you make an API request, you're going to pass certain data or parameters to the function. This can be accessed here in this event thing. And this is like typically you can write code outside in the VS code and then copy paste here, and it still can work. So let's write something like, so this is now currently just returning hello world. That's what it is doing. It's going to return the hello world. So we can test this lambda function first of all whether it is working fine or not. We can give some test name. Maybe I can call it like a test one here, and you can pass certain thing here, right? JSON. So let's keep it default key and the value whatever we have, and maybe click on the save. So the test case got saved so that it is now available here to test, right? So we have configured this is only one test we have. You can click on test, and see, this is what it printed: hello from Lambda. So if you go and change, let's say hello from Pradeep, right? And you see now changes not deployed. So when you make some changes, you can click on deploy. It's like a saving those changes. Okay, now it's got deploy. Now you can test it again, right? So let's click on test using hello from Pradeep. So as this is a simple function which can be run. So currently we are running it manually. You can trigger this function on a particular event. That's what it does. So what if we want to trigger this function? Maybe some API call. So we need to create an API. So you can see here we can add some trigger. When should this particular Lambda function to be called? So let's try to see add trigger what we all have here, and maybe we can play around it. So yeah, this is an API gateway. So we want to trigger it on an API gateway. We can create some new API, HTTP API, REST API. Let's select the REST API function here. Even I didn't go too much into what's the difference, all these things. Okay, what about the security? Maybe we can, for now we can maybe do a open. I think open means anyone can access, and let's add that trigger. You see, the moment we added, now it has some trigger in front of it. This is an API gateway which is going to trigger our a lambda here, and you can go and see where this is the name of the API that is getting created, right? So you can click on here YouTube demo API, and you should go to the API gateway console. It is just same thing, just like you have console for AWS Lambda, which is a different service. Now here API gateway, so you are actually combining two different services to create your own application. Now here you see this is like your API. Now if you click on actions, maybe you can create methods. So you can see here there is an action tab. If you click on that action tab, you have multiple options. You can create method, create resource, and all these things. So maybe we can click on, maybe let's say create method, and we say we want to create maybe the get method, right? And we click here to save that method, and now we are here at the get method. Here we can see what kind of, so when someone is going to request this get method or this particular resource YouTube demo, what we want to call. So we want to call lambda function, where we want to do any other thing, or we want to call any AWS other service. So let's say lambda function is the default thing we have. So we can choose the lambda that we created. So we give something name related to YouTube. So let's search. Okay, so YouTube demo, that is what we got. So let's do, and let's save. Now what is happening? We have created we are giving now permission actually to run this particular lambda. Now this particular get function is configured to run this lambda. And if you now, once you have this method ready, you can deploy this API. So it's like saving those changes, and you can choose some deployment stage. We can write some new stage. Maybe we can give the name like a prod or a production, and we can click on deploy. So when it is deployed, it is actually kind of available for use. So we can, let's copy this particular thing, or if you click on this thing, what will happen? So message is forbidden. Let's go and check the permission thing, that whether the permission has some issue. If you go to the prod, this particular thing, get method, this is our YouTube demo. These are different stages, right? So here is our API. This is the get method. Let's look at the permissions. Like, do we have any permissions that we mentioned there? Edit method, or what is this? Let's click on this. What is this? Okay, it's nothing here. Key is not required. There is no authentication. Then why does it is showing? Yeah, maybe whether we pick up the correct URL or not. Let me go to the gate again here. You know, and this is the method request. Yeah, it says clearly there is no authorization. So let me go back to here. Okay, let's go back to the Lambda then and check from there, from this end, what URL we are getting for this Lambda function, because we know that the trigger information is also available here. Yeah, so here is the API endpoint it has mentioned, right? And so this is what is this thing? Both are like default. None. This is any method. This is the get method. This is the get method. So if you click on this URL, yeah, now it is hello from Pradeep. So the URL was wrong. So this is where we could see this URL, you know, this particular. So this is the stage which is default. And if you go here, did we deploy our stage or not? Yeah, we did deploy, right? So this is the prod, right? Let me try again. A deployed, and you got this prod. Yeah, yeah, this is the only stage name, but we haven't put any, maybe the resource name in front of it, right? So after prod, we have to tell which particular resource we are accessing, right? So that is something I think we will see. Yeah, we are accessing YouTube demo, which is our API or resource name. So this address is only up to stage. So this is the YouTube demo. Let's see what happens. Yeah, now you can see, right? We got the clear. So these are the some of the mistakes even you can do when you are actually, working with this thing. So now we have a clear. Let's try this thing. We can call it in Postman also, because there is no authentication, right? Yeah, let's create the new request here. And again, we going to call, maybe let's say, can we rename this thing? Let's first put our request here. So this is the URL, the get request URL that we want to, make a request. And we don't need to pass anything, right? So this is the get. What is this? Fine. So let's make a request. And you see, right, this is the hello world from Pradeep. This is something working. So you can call any, REST API from here. Let's go back to again Lambda. Okay. So I did have some back and forth here and there, but anyway, that is something even you're going to face. So better you see that, what kind of, issues that you might came across. So again, this is our code. So where is ChatGPT 3? So I just wanted some small functions. So I asked ChatGPT 3 to create, to write one function which simply, what it is taking. It is taking one string and returning in the number of words which has, that's what I asked. The words which are, greater than length 2. So let me copy this code and see whether it generates the correct code or not. And I'm going to replace, maybe the where is our Lambda code? It is here. So let's replace this code with what this chat GPT-3 gave us. So this is it a post request or something? Did I mention that it should be a post request or get request? Okay, it is going to get input string, and we have to pass this, things. Maybe I can ask here itself, like, write a Python request code to make a request this API. Okay, but we haven't created any API. Let's see what it writes, because there is no API, right? But it will write what should be the, maybe the what should be the request type, and maybe the API parameter, that kind of stuff. Okay, so payload will be this. So it is good. Yeah, it has treated it as a post request to make that particular thing, right? So that is fine. We will also try. So let me first, deploy this thing. Since we have made changes, let's deploy it and see what it is expecting. It is expecting a input string that we need to pass. Let's ask chat GPT-3, give us some, give a sample JSON input that we can, send to this particular code. So let's copy this, whatever the input it has given, because I'm too lazy to write all these things. And where is our input? So first of all, this is our body. We want to send a raw JSON. Oh, and sorry, raw, and then type will be the JSON, and this is what we just copied from ChatGPT 3. And we want to change now URL, but currently it is not supporting thing, right? Let's see. We haven't mentioned anything whether it's a gate or post request or something like that, right? We have just deployed. Let's run, because we haven't treated as a post request or something. So count is 3, right? So it is able to take it as a get request, and those things going to be, in the parameters. So if I look at the parameters, there is nothing here. There is no authorization. The body, this is a test string. So anyone knows why it should work? Because first of all, it is not, maybe it is a get request with the parameter, right? Yeah. So it is working correctly. If you go to, yeah, we can also see a logs, right? Where is it? You can go to the monitor and you can also see the logs. Maybe you can see view logs in the CloudWatch, and you can see all the time it has triggered. All these things you can see here. Okay, you can see the couple of times we have called it. Maybe the recent one will be this one is the recent one. So let's look at this thing. And we should see some of the stuffs when it ran, all these things, right? So this is where we receive the request and all this thing. If you print anything inside the code, you should see that thing. So let's print something here, right? Maybe what we're going to do, we're going to print this event, what we are getting in this particular event. So let's deploy it again and let's make a request. Now we again got the count is 3. Go back to the let's say here is our CloudWatch console, and we should see a new request, new trigger or a run, and here you could see right here. This is something. So this is definitely it seems to be a get request. It is taking. What if you want to create a post request, right? So maybe you go to here and let's change the post request and see what happens. Now there is no post request, there is nothing which is taking this kind of a post request. Maybe let's go back to there and you go to the API. That is, this is the API we have it, right? This is the API. So let's go to that API. You see we have only any and the get method. So maybe let's add one more method to it. Let's add a post method. Save it. Now we have post method. It is the same lambda we want to trigger. So what was its name? It was named something related to YouTube. And let's save it. Again, it is giving a warning. Save. Now our lambda should be also triggered by the post request. So let's refresh this thing. You see now we might have got one more endpoint. So let's go into the detail. This is one any. This is a get method, and this is a post method. Now our lambda is capable of taking post method, but whether code work will or not, let's see. Not sure. Usually I don't python. I also go and search online, what should be the syntax and all these things. So if it is a post request, I think we should get it into the body. So we should get a body tag. Let's see what error we get. We still get the internal server error, but we now go to the CloudWatch and see whether we get any, some kind of a warning error that will be, help us to know what's happening. Okay, there are a lot of things, but at least we are printing our that first time when we print an event, we got this. But when we make a post request, you can see what we are printing here. What we are printing here. Let me switch to monitor. I'm not using monitor currently. Let me switch to a monitor so that it become easy for me to see. Okay, now I'm on my monitor. See what? So when you make a post request, you see HTTP method is equal to post. You got lot of other stuff. So when you make that default get request, you got simply that JSON like this way. So now you see we got this path parameter, we got this HTTP method which is the post, the content type. What else we have? Okay, what if we? I think this will be okay, and then we got some because there is not directly event, right? So what else it has? Okay, maybe if it is a, let me see it. It is a Python string, right? So maybe the Python beautifier where I can see properly this particular string what it is actually. So let's paste it here and let's format it. Now you see properly. So these are the headers. We can see, okay, we can see we are making request from postman. It has captured it here. And method is also post because we are making a post request, right? This is the path. This is the resource, what we created. And this is the request context, all these things, right? Here is the body. You can see we got the body of the request. So now that input is actually coming inside the variable called body. Now I remember. I just forgot it. So this is something. Let's ask ChatGPT whether it can help us. Maybe we say modify about lambda function. Maybe to receive a post request. And if it modifies, then it will help. Else, I will just type. I'm just lazy to type all these things. Right? I just want Now you see it is making changes. Now it makes sure that it is for accessing that event body because the body has all the details that what we are actually saying, right? and that is where that input string. But I guess our data is in JSON, right? So let's see. We will just simply copy this paste. If we get some error, we will resolve it. No problem. Let me copy. Now at least from event body we are getting the input string, but I'm not sure whether so what was the syntax, where is the syntax? So from event body, which is actually a some it is a JSON actually, right? You see input string, and this is, so I think the code will not work, I guess, right? So let's see, we will deploy and I hope it will not work. Let me saint this thing. Oh, it is working, so it's wrong. So why did it work? First event body, this is like input string. So we should have print input string directly. So that body and the context. Now let's go and see what context we got. There is no statement. Where are all this recent request? Is it here? I don't see it here. This one is the recent one. And it didn't print anything. Okay, we just copy that ChatGPT code. Does it has any print statement? No, it doesn't have any print statement. So I'm going to now print event. Okay, I'm also going to print maybe the type of the, maybe I'm going to print the type of the event body. Okay, and we will also print the event body. Maybe things will be clear. So as I said, I don't buy it, I just check online, do trial and error. Let's click on here. Now again we got the count is equal to 4. Make sure that it is running proper. So yeah, we got our count is equal to 5. Let's go back to this console. I just want to see a new request. This is the new request we got. This is the input. Okay, you see what we got. Actually, the type is a string. I thought it will receive it as a dictionary. That's what I thought, because I could see this is like in a JSON. So either we should have done this JSON.dump and then, but it simply received this whole thing as a string. And this is what the value of the body looks like. So body is simply nothing but the JSON string that we sent. So if it got that thing, right? So event dot body is nothing but the string that we think. It simply split that string and it returned us. I was expecting something else. I thought, see, this is a JSON. Then we saw it is the type is a string, means the type is a JSON. So usually I should do JSON.dump and then convert it into the dictionary. But this code is also working. What if I do that thing? So let's say now I make here body. Let's rename this thing. Let's say this is the body, event dot body. Then I make this is actually maybe JSON dot dumps, because I think it's a JSON that what we are sending, right? So then now this body should be now a dictionary, and this body of this thing right now, if it is a dictionary, then we know we get this input string, and this is actually string that what we are sending. If that is the case, right? Now see whether we get the type of the body as a dictionary. Okay, if it works, then it should be a dictionary. This is the type. It's a definitely string, but we do that string is a JSON that we know, right? And then it's simply now the words will be this, because this is where we have, why not print body also later, because we know now it should be a Python dictionary. Go to deploy now, and let's try again whether it runs. So we got an error, so definitely it's not working. Then go to the seventh. So this is what we sent. Type error, right? It is saying that what is the string indices must be integer. So body is actually a string, input string. Did we make anything wrong here? We are sending JSON. What is the headers? Headers don't have anything. What if we put application type as a JSON here? The content type calculated when the request is sent. This header was automatically added. The content length header, the content type is the application JSON. That's what we are sending, right? It's get automatically this JSON. When I sent here event this body, we got this error. This is actual thing class string. What is first thing is the event. Second thing is the type, which is string. Third thing is actually the body that what we are getting, which is again this string that we sent. If this is the string it is getting, how on earth it was able to do that thing? Where is the chat GPT-3? If event body is that whole big string, how come from the request body the string that we pass, it is not even using any key? What was the input string here? If I get copy again, go here, I just want to print, what is this input string then? Count is equal to 5, and let's go and see what is that input string, because it might be showing an output, but what if it is not correct? You see, input string is whole big thing, right? So when it splitted it, what is this words in? Maybe it is giving some output to us, but is it a correct output, or it is just randomly coming as a correct thing? Words, go back here. Let's look at the latest output. You see, it is wrong totally, first of all. So, though we are getting some count, but we saw these words are wrong because it is taking whole body as a single string. But that is not something the input that we intend to count. So this is though working because it is taking whole request body as a string and then counting all these words, right? So though we are getting this thing, but it is wrong, this particular thing, because we know that our input is JSON and only it should be able to so this is wrong definitely. This is not the correct thing. So event dot body, whatever we are sending, that should be, we should be able to get a JSON out of it first of all. So that's what I try to do, right? So event dot body is the body, but we were not able to do when I click JSON dot. Why JSON dot dumps? We should use JSON dot loads because we want to convert string to the Python dictionary. I think that was the wrong thing. Maybe the JSON dot loads and not the JSON dot loads, right? What is the spelling? Now we should get the body first of all. Okay, we should print the body and we should print the type of the body. Now it should be a dictionary and we should get a correct output. Type of the body, this is because the body is nothing but the event body, that thing, right? That what we take. This is the body. Now if it worked correctly, then we know that this body has this variable called input string, right? We know that it has this variable input string, and that input string variable is actually string that we want to split, and then we should see our words printed here. Let's see if any error we will come to know. And now let's make a request again. We got the count is equal to 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now it seems to be correct. Let's go back and let's look at the logs. Okay, now you see we got the correct output. So if we would have tested this, chat GPT-3 output blindly, then we were wrong totally. Though we were getting the, maybe the correct output, but there were no error. But when we debug it, we know that it was wrong, right? Because what it was doing, it was actually considering this whole thing as a string and then splitting all this string. But that was a wrong thing totally, right? Oh, thank God we actually look at what is the output it is processing, right? So we saw this should be the target thing. So that is what I got confused, because I remember we should get thing in a JSON. So when you use JSON.loads, we can get it as a dictionary, and then you can access all the fields that what we want, right? Okay, this video maybe is something what I didn't intend it will go like this because I didn't practice before the video. I just thought of recording, and if anything comes, I thought I have a chat GPT-3, I have playground open here so that I can just use it. But one thing is sure that I can't trust chat GPT-3 blindly because it was wrong, and even we were couldn't even find easily that it was wrong. We started thinking that we might be wrong. Okay, so that was good learning. I don't know how much helpful this video will be, but at least this was eye opening for me that this can happen. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know. I'm not sure now. This video got unnecessarily lengthy, but I'm sure if you are the beginner, right, then this is how you will struggle. It won't be a polished tutorial, but this is what really one I will work. Maybe I could have done it much more faster if I was working because I didn't thought of that I'm recording, right? I would have just searched anything what I required. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you. Bye.